All right, me. It is sometime in July. It's July 12th. um, I don't remember when I started reading this book, nor do I remember when I finished the previous book. I think sometime in May, maybe even April. But I did just finish reading The DaVinci Code by Dan Brown. This specific version I'm reading was my father's. It is kind of like a special illustrated version in which it includes a lot of images and pieces from. It includes, I think, one or two frames from the movie, which I will be watching later tonight. But a lot of it deals with the historic artwork or the architectural pieces that get mentioned throughout the book, not just the ones that are directly important to the whole chase, but a lot of the other things that just kind of get mentioned kind of offhand. But yeah. Man, this book took me so long to read. I think I read like the first 70 or 100 pages or so right after I had finished Of Angels and Demons, like within that same weekend or something like that. And then I basically did not pick up this book again until this week. And part of that, a lot of that's due to work, right? Obviously, I now have stress pimples again at age 24, and I'm breaking out. I definitely, I feel sick. But yeah. The book itself, I think, is still really, really fun. I think I can see why. I mean, this book gets the traction that it does, especially compared to Angels and Demons, because I think both books get a movie, and I think maybe The Lost Symbol also gets a movie. I think the first three do, but I think I can see why this one gets so much more traction, because Of Angels and Demons seems a lot more like rooted within this kind of plausible fictitious world of the secret society within the Vatican and all of these things, whereas this feels a lot more James Bondish, right, in terms of being very much like a spy plot, but you have kind of the singular individual that exists within it that is not very Bond-like, and he just kind of, I don't want to say he stumbles his way to the right answer, but rather that he gets to the right answer using the wrong equation a good number of times. I think it's also very hard in which, and I've said this before about mysteries in general, specifically murder mysteries, but I think just mysteries in general, is that it's so hard to write a good twist that feels plausible in some way, but also is it just makes coherent sense, but also is shocking to the reader, but also can be followed, right? You're balancing a lot of different things here, right? And I think this kind of overall twist that occurs, spoiler alert for a 20-something-year-old book, and a very popular movie, is that Tiebling, who is where they get all this information about the Grail from, also turns out to be the teacher, and Remy, the manservant for Tiebling, also ends up being within the teacher's pocket, but then Remy's also the only one that knows that both people are the same person. It feels, I don't think it quite makes sense in the way that it gets kind of put together. That whole thing I don't think quite makes sense. I think the concept or the idea of what the twist is really, really strong, right? You have this In Tiebling, you have someone who suffered from polio and is therefore has a disability, and it's like he becomes basically the only person that, like, because he does have this disability, that people constantly underestimate, and then he gets to kind of just do what he wants, and he also has access to a seemingly unlimited amount of money, but yeah, right, that actual twist involving both Tiebling and Remy, and that Tiebling is actually the bad guy in all of this, doesn't quite make sense, other than the fact that it is Tiebling's goal to uncover and show the truth about the Holy Grail, and that the church has been rewriting history for forever, right, about Jesus and his divinity and things, right? Personally, what I think probably the bigger impact that this book ends up having, right, is that because, like, the ideas and concepts of secret societies and things like that it's not inherently new, right? I think it becomes very, very, very popular during this kind of 2000s range, but it's not necessarily a new concept, right? But I think it speaks to what I think was another big issue coming from the early 2000s, which is this kind of distrust within religion, and specifically the largest religions, right? You have, I don't even know if that there is any true scandal that occurred during that time within the church, but like there's certainly these feelings of like, coming from someone who, you know, was born at that time, and then now just gets to look back on it and doesn't have any memories of like existing during that time, right? But there's this kind of like constant feeling of, though, there's all these scandals that occurred, and now I can't name any of them. I have no idea what they were, but I feel like that's just kind of like a feeling that exists about the church, right? And I should say the church, I should say, you know, within the Christian religion, whether that be Catholicism, which is where a lot of this comes and is written from, right? But within all sects, right? And yeah, I think then it also speaks to this kind of weird issue that occurs, right, in which within a religious organization, right, or any organization, when your numbers are dwindling and you don't have as many people wanting to be a part of your circumstance, right? Do you then accept things that don't necessarily agree with where you want to be, right? And that becomes the kind of the whole question between what kind of starts all of this off, which is between the Catholic Church and the Vatican and Opus Dei, where you have, you know, it is the one Catholic organization that is gaining in numbers and is becoming really, really popular, but is also one that kind of goes against what the Pope, the fictitious Pope within the Dan Brown universe, the DBU, as it were, or RLU, the Robert Langdon universe, because it kind of goes against what that Pope wants the Catholic Church to be realized, right? Which, you know, I mean, it sparks a larger debate of, you know, how willing are we to deal with things that we do not like in order to save ourselves, right? Yeah. I think it also, the other reason why this book, I think, is a lot more traction than Angels and Demons, it is because of just like we have these great historical figures, specifically within Leonardo da Vinci, in which we have this understanding, and we were told a great deal, and like Isaac Newton and these people that are like, that these people are incredibly important to us and to our history as just people in general, and that they have done so much work to further humanity, or that they are so ingeniously unique to humanity that their simple existence provided us and moved us forward. And it's because none of us then get to meet these people or have an understanding of who these people were. It is fascinating to envision them as characters that are larger than life, right? And that they belong to not only these secret societies, but then also are carrying this deep, foreboding secret that they are protectorates of. And the secret that they are protecting is not only one that is, super big and important, but also shakes the very foundation on which many people are raised on, right? In which millions and millions and millions of people are raised on and have an innate sense or belief of, right? And the idea of Jesus' divinity, and things like that, right? Yeah. I guess the final point, and I was talking with my friend Tim about this, is that the books themselves are not, right, it's not like they're the greatest mysteries in the world, but what they do, I think, and we both agreed on this, is that it's like the conceptual points of religion as the focal point of a mystery, I think, are really incredible and really unique, because I think for many of us that have grown up in a religious aspect in some way, or even work for I work for the YMCA, right? I work for a Christian organization inherently, that it is a religion that is and has been doctored by man, is really, really fascinating, right? To then be able to look at and envision, all these other gospels or words or visions, and although we can say that, this Bible is, or whatever Bible that we're looking at is the true version or the most complete version or the version that we choose to follow, right? There is a certain lack of, or the issue of what else was written during this time, or what else was written by these other people that were chosen to not be included, right? What things have been lost to history or were lost to the foundation of this religion, because of exterior motives, right? Yeah, I think that's all I got to say on that one. DaVinci Code, very, very fun. I probably read about 300 pages in the past week or so, which was like a morning and then a couple hours today, about 3 hours today. So yeah, that's the DaVinci Code by Dan Brown.